Hi guys, welcome back to Seduce Me to the Demon War demo. Yuki here. We are going to be moving on to Sam's route, and as of November 30th, the Kickstarter for Seduce Me 2 will be coming to a close since it's today, I guess, if I get it up today. It seems like it's been it's getting like it's past a lot of reached a lot of goals. There's a few more hours until it's over. If this comes out before 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and almost to the male protagonist. But anyways, if you have a chance, or if you haven't, go check it out while you still can. Donate or fund them in any way you can if possible, or just plug it in if you can. Anyways, I'm just gonna go in now, and if I sound a little weird, it's because I have a cold. But yeah.
Is this wise?
Huh?
What other choice do we have?
We have plenty of choices. Why be impatient about this?
The Demon Lord is vulnerable now. We can't wait any longer.
Striking quickly is not always the best option. We must regroup and charge at full force.
For once, I agree with Snake.
Huh.
But what if he does the same? We have the advantage. We have the terrain on our side. We can win this war here and now.
We may have the terrain on our side, but we don't have the strength to fight a second battle without rest.
That's where Sam comes in.
Going now is suicide.
My lady, you've been silent this whole time. How should we proceed? We don't have the strength to finish the battle, but the Demon Lord is weak. This may be the only chance to strike him down.
We'll push them back. He's weak, so we can easily force his hand and make him retreat. Once we corner him against the decaying sea, we'll strike and finish him off.
Sam, you're being extremely frugal about this. A wedding is supposed to be a grand occasion.
I need to turn down the volume settings. Preferences. Much better.
I agree. We have the funds to make this wedding a large event.
Dude, I can make you a giant cake, and we can have a big buffet, and streamers, and a DJ, and...
Sam, calm down.
Huh? Oh yeah, he still has his powers in this one. Planning a wedding was like strategizing for a war. Ruthless, quick, and everything had to be precisely organized for success. It was both intriguing and terrifying to think about. However, it was my wedding, so it had to be done. Sam and I were getting married, and his brothers had become our assistant wedding planners. Sam was happy that his brothers were going to assist, but I could tell that their constant suggestions were grating on his nerves. We were sitting at the dining room, poring over a large scramble of papers that were covered in names, costs, and other bits of information that we needed to know. Each number and letter were important and needed to be checked again and again with each decision we made. There were so many names on that table I could barely see mine. Luckily, however, our sample cards and party favors had Sam's name and mine on them. Whee! I looked over at Sam, knowing that he was getting frustrated. It was obvious by the look on Sam's face that he was very much annoyed by the entire situation.
I don't want a big wedding. I just want to get married.
Then why not just go to the courthouse and get your marriage license?
How unromantic.
Because this is important, okay?
Sam looked at me and my heart skipped a beat. His eyes bore into mine, and I could see the deep love he had for me in his emerald irises.
This is a big deal for me. For us. I do really want a wedding, but just not a big one. Alright?
It was almost as if he was asking me, pleading for my permission to have the wedding size he wished for. I wasn't really sure myself if I wanted a big or small wedding. I was still curious on how we were going to get this all done. James crossed his arms as Eric rubbed his forehead in defeat. Damien and Matthew, however, looked at their other older brother with a new gaze of respect and idolizing awe. Aw.
If that is what you want, then that is what we will arrange.
This wedding will be amazing, no matter how big or small it is.
Why don't we ask the bride what she wants then? She may want a large wedding.
All of the 5 boys looked at me and I suddenly felt cornered. I wasn't sure. I don't know, I don't think I'm ever gonna get married, but I guess if I ever did, family and friends. I mean, nothing too big. I had to agree with Sam. I didn't want to make this a spectacle. The wedding was important to me, Sam and me, and that was all that mattered. I would like to keep our wedding small too. It's our wedding, so it doesn't need to be a big extravaganza. Sam looked at me and smiled, causing me to smile back. It was our day, so we had to celebrate it our way. As the brothers took a moment to look over more notes, Sam kissed my cheek softly, surprising me. Oh! I glared at Sam as he smirked a playful grin at me before turning back to the table of papers and looking through them with his brothers. I gulped to myself and gently held the cheek he kissed. I was glad to make him happy. James pushed his glasses further up his nose and put together a stack of papers, gazing at the content on the front page.
Well, everything that you both listed should be possible for the wedding. I can call up the venues for the ceremony and reception. Eric, can you organize the decorations?
As the boys began to divide up the work, before I was able to step in, my phone began to ring. My screen showed Naomi's face, and I stood from my seat. Yay, an appearance from our friends! I'll be right back. I gotta take this.
Huh? Whoa, yeah, okay.
I quickly kissed Sam's cheek before rushing out of the dining room and into the lobby to answer the phone. Hello?
Hey, how's everything going?
Naomi, it's been so long. Oh, hey, Naomi. Everything's going well. We're going through the details now.
That's good. Seriously, Naomi, you're hogging the phone.
Suzu? Suzu? My jaw dropped at the sound of Suzu's voice. Suzu was supposed to be in Italy and wasn't going to make the wedding. Why was she with Naomi?
Surprise! I was hogging the phone to keep Suzu being here a surprise, but I guess she's too impatient to wait.
This is off topic, but if they didn't get together with the main character, would they end up together? Maybe. Or they just be like, whatever, doesn't matter.
Fuck waiting. I want to talk to her too.
When did you get in?
Literally 2 hours ago. We wanted to come visit, but we figured you'd be too busy, so we just called instead. We're so happy for you. Suzu had to come back for the wedding.
I felt like crying. Naomi and Suzu were my best friends, and I was so glad to have them. Naomi was following her dreams to become a chef, while Suzu spent a lot of time with her family, so I felt very special to have time to even talk to them. I sat on the stairs and chatted with them, catching up on their lives. Suzu's family was still in Italy, visiting family and traveling the country for a couple of months, but Suzu managed to fly back not only to attend my wedding, but also to manage her family's casino. Naomi, on the other hand, had been hard at work, both at summa cum laude of her... I can't read. Summa cum laude of her culinary school and being a paid intern in the Pink Lady Cafe. Kay, often out of town, gave Lily a manager position while Naomi manned the cashier and baking duties. It was really nice for her to hear how their lives had changed over the past 2 years. Mine, however, had barely changed with the exception of the upcoming marriage. I was going to college for a degree I wanted, and I was halfway to my bachelor's degree. For my classes weren't hard, and they were very lenient towards me because I was Harold Anderson's granddaughter. Lucky. Part of me was frustrated at the special treatment I received, while the other part of me was flattered. Sam, however, went into the police force. With the help of his incubus magic, he was able to don a badge and serve the community well. Everyone knew him and loved him for his hard work, despite his boss being jealous of him at times. I never understood why he joined the force, but I was happy to know that he felt the need to help people, like I did.
So, are you ready to get married?
Psh, I've been waiting for 2 years. In-game. I don't think I'm gonna get married in real life. It's a lot to take in, I will admit.
Ha! You're dancing around the question.
Huh? No, I'm not.
Suzu, stop teasing. She's probably just flustered from the work she has to do.
As Naomi and Suzu began to bicker on the other end of the phone, I began to mull over my life. I was 20, turning 21 soon, and I was about to be married. Married! Was I going to go too fast? Maybe a little bit. My mind began to picture Sam and how happy he was when he proposed to me, and when I said yes. My heart fluttered at the image, and I couldn't help but smile. I made the right choice. As I thought of Sam, I couldn't help but let memories of our relationship dance around in my mind. He was sweet and loving, but at the same time he was hardworking, protective, and proud of to be mine. He proved his love for me every time he held me and kissed me.
I bet you two already had sex, though, so there won't be that awkward virgin honeymoon, huh?
Really, Suzu? What? I nearly dropped my phone. I could hear Suzu guffawing at me from the other end, but I was too focused on what she said. My playthrough, we didn't. But why not? Yeah, we had sex, so what? I remember the night we first made love. Sam was gentle, but the passion between us had been heated and heavy, adding to our love for each other. A small shiver ran up my spine with the memory. We made love multiple times after that, when we needed each other or when we wanted to express our love for each other with our bodies. Making love was truly another way we showed our deep passion for each other.
Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Don't worry, girl. You're not the only one who no longer has her virginity.
Naomi!
What? You too?
Oh,
Am
Suzu?
I the only one who still hasn't had sex yet? It's not like sex is mandatory, Naomi. Calm down.
I can't help but chuckle a bit. We were so different, but we truly loved each other, and we were close enough to talk about anything.
But hey, we gotta let you go, okay? We haven't eaten and it's almost 9 p.m.
Wow. Jeez, go get some food. We can chat tomorrow or something.
You got it, Chica. We'll call you whenever we're free, even if it's not tomorrow. For now, food! Alright, we'll talk to you later.
Yeah, I'll call you guys soon. We hung up simultaneously, and I looked down at my phone with a smile. It was good to hear from them at last. However, as I made my way back towards the dining room, I stopped.
I want to do it.
You cannot be serious.
I quickly hugged the wall and emptied my thoughts so Damien wouldn't hear them. I listened intently, thinking about Naomi and Susie as I let my ears capture what I wanted to discover. I learned so many tricks on how to avoid Damien, and it was now an easy tool to fool him. Nice.
A demon marriage? In the human world? How do you expect to pull this off?
Interesting.
I don't know. I just want to marry her. Both like a human for her and like a demon for me.
I'm interested about what a demon marriage is like. I don't remember if they said that in the Tumblr page or not.
I mean, it's a nice idea, but you need a lot, and I mean a lot, of things we can't get here in the human world.
Sam wants to visit the demon black market to find the things he needs.
Oh.
Sam! Are you that idiotic?
Gee, thanks, Damien.
The black market? Really? You'd go that far?
It's my goddamn choice.
A choice that will make you an even bigger target for angels. What the hell are you thinking?
My mind continued to focus on my friends, but my heart became heavy and frightened. Sam wanted things he'd have to get at a black market. I didn't even realize there was a demon black market. I felt majorly confused, but I let the emotion simply rumble in my chest instead of my mind.
Look, I know you want to do this with her, but can't you at least think about this? What if you can't find all of the materials needed for it?
Even more so, what if she doesn't want to do it? She is human after all. Did you even ask her?
I was...
Oh, for the love of God.
Consent.
Sam, come on! I know you're a meathead, but you're not this dumb. Why haven't you asked her?
I just want to bind my soul to her, alright?
Oh.
You know, like the fucking demon I actually am!
Oh. My thoughts went blank. For a moment I had forgotten that he was, in fact, a demon. But bind his soul to me? What did he mean? Does that mean that if he dies, I die, or I die, he dies?
Yes, you are a demon, but you're in the human world now. Marriage doesn't work like that here.
Sam, why are you having doubts?
My entire body froze up. What? He was having doubts? Why? I suppressed the surprise in my mind, still remembering that I was eavesdropping, but I was starting to feel upset.
Not having doubts. I want to do this. You just
what? You want to return to the demon world? You want to marry her in the abyssal planes instead of here?
And if I did, so what if I do? I can get us there, and we'd be able to do the ceremony, and then we'd come back!
You may want to go back, but she would become a target for demons to kill for sport. She'd die before you even returned. Did you even think about that? Huh?
A large silence followed. I became lost and nervous. Why was Sam so obsessed about this issue?
James, calm down. Yelling at him solves nothing.
Actually, I think this is the first time I've heard James this upset.
Sam, we all know you really want to do this. We're just trying to show you the facts before you do something stupid.
I couldn't stand it any longer. It was not a good time to bring it up, so I needed to clear the air of the situation. Eventually I could talk to Sam about it, but not now. I mentally signaled that I was ending the call and thinking about rejoining the room, knowing Damien would hear my thoughts.
She's coming back.
I turned the corner and looked at the five, seeing them obviously divided. Sam was on one side, both hands on the table as he stared down at it in defeat. The other four were on the opposite side, looking to me. Hey, what happened?
Nothing. We just had a bit of a... Fuck this, I'm done.
Sam pushed away the table and began to walk towards me, watched as he passed me and climbed the stairs, obviously beyond angry. Sam!
Miss, wait.
I turned back to see the four incubus brothers with worried looks on their faces. I wanted to go to Sam, but I knew that he needed to calm down, so I stayed. What is it?
Well, this is very hard to ask.
If Sam wanted to do something very, very specific and hard to accomplish, and if you wanted to, do that with you...
Basically, would you allow Sam to do something that makes him happy but risks his life?
I don't know. I couldn't help thinking about the conversation they had, which made Damien furrow his eyebrows. Crap. Be right back. Somebody's at the door. Back. Also, I'm currently chewing on candy cane, so sorry. Crap.
You heard everything.
Don't look at me like that.
You did?
I closed my eyes. There was no use in denying it. But it was something I needed to talk about. But was it something I needed to talk about with them? I knew I'd have to talk about it with Sam, but with his brothers? Why not? I needed to know more about what was going on. Why was Sam so keen on doing whatever he had planned? I heard what you were all talking about, but I don't understand. A demon marriage? James laid out a sigh before rubbing his temple with one hand, crossing his other arm over his chest. Matthew stepped forward, becoming the teacher of the movement.
Well, you see, humans plan weddings and have licenses and stuff, and bam! You're married. Demons, however, are a little more intimate.
Intimate?
Well, basically, when demons want to be together forever, they don't put rings on each other or anything like that. They bind each other's souls.
I hope that's not what the Demon King did with the other people. I mean, your mothers. What? That was making no sense, but then again, it was demon magic, and they were talking about it, so it wasn't familiar to me at all. Eric stepped forward and continued.
When two demons want to join together and build their legacy and family, they go through a ritual that binds their souls together for all of eternity. No matter where they are, they will forever sense each other's presence and be able to feel them in their hearts.
Pretty much. It's kind of romantic. It's also pretty complicated.
Pretty complicated.
Well, when a demon binds their soul to another demon, they also swear to give their energy to their partner without question.
Oh.
Normally, willpower can be used to fight back when someone takes our energy, but the binding spell will overrule your will.
That's pretty crappy.
Basically, it's constant consent,
Oh.
even if you fight back. Demons have accepted this way of life, but from what we've seen of the human world, humans wouldn't be so keen on this idea.
Yeah. I suddenly felt a little scared. If I was bound to my soul to Sam, he'd be able to take my energy whenever he wanted. I knew he wouldn't abuse that, but it was still scary no longer having to say in whether I wanted to or not. I don't know, you see those weird premonitions we keep having about all the guys having like this dark side. Whether that's just our subconscious or something else telling us to watch out, I don't know. Did I want to bind my soul to him? I shook my head, putting the information in a mental folder before asking another question. It was not something I had to go through right now. I'd be able to think it over later. What's involved with this spell?
Well, it requires a lot of power and a bunch of things to perform the ritual correctly. Our moms, well, except for Damien's, all had to gather everything and perform it with their own energy because there was no one to cast the spell.
I see. So that answers my question. That really sucks.
That's because our father was a misogynistic tyrant who demanded more than one partner.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, you need to have someone to cast the spell. Then you'd need to properly set the magic circle and temper the space. There's a lot you'd have to do.
A demon ritual to bind souls? All of it was intriguing to me, but yet at the same time, I was concerned over the implied difficulty. Was it something like that truly complicated? To bind two souls together, it was romantic in thought, but I guess difficult in process and execution. Sam really seemed passionate about the idea, just from how frustrated he was in disagreeing with his brothers. I felt both flattered and worried. Damien walked over to me, obviously hearing my thoughts on the situation, and placed a hand on my shoulder.
Don't let this worry you. He'll talk to you about it when he's ready. I don't believe he fully knows what to do yet.
You always make me feel better, Damien. I nodded and closed my eyes. Now that I understood a bit more about the situation, talking to Sam about it would be easier. I sighed and looked at the boys, seeing them starting to clean the table and clear the papers off. I had to assume that the planning was done for the night. I guess we'll discuss more another time?
It'll have to wait until the weekend. Much is happening this week, so I won't be available.
Same here. I have to train a couple of interns so they know how to properly fit customers with a suit.
Oh!
This weekend is perfectly fine, right?
Yeah, that sounds good. I helped pile the papers in a proper stack in the table, making them ready for the next time they were to be viewed, before I escorted the boys out. Sam remained wherever he was, and didn't see his brothers off. After I closed the door, however, Sam appeared at the balcony above the lobby and began to descend the staircase.
Are they gone?
Yeah, they'll be back this weekend. Sam sighed and ran his hand through his hair, letting his shoulders slouch forward.
This is ridiculous. Is wedding prep really this complicated?
I could only nod before walking over and meeting him as he reached the bottom step. As he stepped off of it, I wrapped my arms around him and nuzzled his forehead, making him look into my eyes. It'll be worth it in the end when we're married. Sam smiled and wrapped his arms around my waist, nuzzling my forehead. I felt the deep love in his embrace, wanting to protect me from the world and all the dangers within it. He had protected me so many times with those arms that were wrapped around me.
If I get to be with you forever, then I guess it's worth the work, you doofus.
As long as you'll have me, I'll be with you forever. With a loving gaze, Sam lifted a hand from my waist and cut my cheek, and I nuzzled into the warmth of his palm and letting out a loving sigh.
Hey, can we go somewhere tomorrow?
Huh? Sure, I guess. Where did you want to go? Thoughts of him going to the black market crossed my mind, making me feel slightly worried as to where he wanted to go. Sam, however, looked at his feet.
Well, we already asked your folks and stuff about me marrying you. But there's one person I have to ask permission from.
Your mother? Who? Oh, grandfather. Dang, why did I have to do that? I was shocked. He wanted me to go to my grandfather's grave? Damien had explained that it had been my grandfather who had brought them over from the demon world, but I still was getting used to the idea. After 2 years, Sam continued to explain as I wrapped my head around the question.
I know I sound a little dumb, but he was kind of important to me and my brothers. He's the one who brought us here after all. It's only respectful if, I guess, I kinda ask for his blessing. I mean, it's dumb and we don't have to, but...
No, that's sweet. Oh, my candy cane's falling apart. No! No, we can! Definitely! Tomorrow around noon then? Sam stared in shock before he nodded with a smile.
Alright.
The thought of going to visit grandfather's grave somehow made me feel happy instead of sad. We both had visited him before, but we weren't engaged then, and something felt special about this visit. Maybe it was because Sam was doing things right before marrying me? Who knew? We went to bed that night, settled in our plans for the following day. As morning arrived, we got dressed and were out of the house by the time the clock struck noon. It was a bright day and no one else was visiting, so Sam and I were alone in the cemetery. It was a little unnerving, but at the same time it was nice to be able to spend time at grandfather's grave alone with Sam. I would visit alone sometime. I would visit alone but eventually, but for now, Sam took control of our visit. Sam sat down in front of the grave, crossing his legs, and stared at the stone slab that was my grandfather's gravestone. I followed suit, sitting beside him and placing a bouquet of colorful flowers beside the grave.
No matter how many times we come here, it's still so odd. I remember when we met almost like it was yesterday.
Yeah. It's still strange. We both sat in comfortable silence, looking at the grave. It was strange remembering that 2 years ago I had met Sam and his brothers literally the day after my grandfather had died. Now I was getting married to Sam. It was surreal to say the very least. Sam strained his back and cleared his throat, causing me to look at him in confusion.
So, Mr. Anderson, I hope that you're around to hear us and stuff. Your spirit, I mean. I'm fucking this up already.
What? I was confused. Why was he asking if my grandfather was there? He was buried under the earth, and his spirit was probably in the afterlife. Sam took another breath.
I must sound like a complete jackass. You've given my brothers a chance to start new lives, and I can't ever thank you enough. Now, I'm asking for your granddaughter's hand. I must seem like a brat, huh?
I could only watch as Sam ran his hand through his messy hair, obviously deep in thought and formulating his words carefully before speaking. He didn't want to mess this up. I could tell by the look on his face.
You've given us so much already. I want to be able to not only pay you back for giving my brothers better lives, but I want to be with your granddaughter for the rest of my life. As a demon, and as her husband. I promise to take care of her and love her for the rest of my life. I want to be with her and provide her with the life she deserves. I may be a demon, but I love her, and will do anything to protect her and keep her happy. Please, if you're here, I humbly ask for your blessing to marry your granddaughter.
My heart was overwhelmed by the emotional speech Sam made. Tears were forming in my eyes from the love he was expressing for me. I held my hands over my chest, unable to stop the pounding of my heart. Sam truly loved me. As I stared at Sam, a gentle wind passed through the air and brushed over Sam's and my skin. It was out of place. The sun was out, and I hadn't felt any breeze at all until just then. Huh? Grandfather? Another small breeze brushed over us, making me and Sam smile at the sensation. The wind was my grandfather's answer, and it was gentle enough to let us know that he was happy to see where we were and what we were planning to do. Sam let out the breath he was holding in now that he knew that my grandfather approved.
I won't let you down.
I couldn't help a wide smile growing on my face. I was beyond overjoyed at the situation. If grandfather really was there, I was happy to know that he approved of us. We went home that day feeling confident and ready for whatever the future held for us. We had to gain the blessing of my grandfather, and I was certain that however we went about this marriage, we were going to care and love each other for the rest of our lives. Just thinking about Sam being with me forever made my heart jump in joy. Was I really that excited to be married to him? My heart thought so, despite him being a demon. Still the demon ritual remained in the back of my mind, softly prodding my thoughts as we returned home and worked on more wedding arrangements. I looked at Sam, now curious enough to bring it up. The question was, would I? You gotta be honest in this relationship and any other relationship we get into. Yes. It was bothering me. I wanted to know what was on Sam's mind, and I needed to hear his thoughts about it. I looked at Sam as he pored over a guest list. He was proficient with reading now, constantly learning in the past 2 years we had been together, so he was flying through the work with ease. Still, I needed to break the silence. Sam, can I ask you something? Sam looked up from his work and sat up straight, rolling back his shoulders.
Yeah, sure, what's up?
Promise you won't be mad? Sam furrowed his eyebrows, not concerned about what I wanted to ask. I bit my lower lip, but he nodded, crossing his arms, leaning back on his chair.
Go ahead.
If I was nervous before, I was even more nervous now. Well, you see... I looked down at the table, hoping that the wooden service would help me to find some way to form my thoughts. Once I was able to form my thoughts into words, I looked back up at Sam. Why is having a demon marriage so important to you? Sam stared in shock at me. I knew I had thrown him off, but I needed to say it. I wanted him to explain and for us to discuss it. If it was something Sam wanted, I really wished to help and possibly achieve it with him. If it was impossible, I still wanted to know and at least try regardless, all for him. Sam sighed and looked down at his crossed arms. Was it seriously that big of a deal that he felt shame over it?
Who told you about it?
I overheard you and your brothers arguing about it yesterday. I began to worry. Did I make him mad? Would he be furious at me for bringing it up? I watched as he ran both his hands through his hair and let out a sigh.
Well, we're having a human marriage and stuff, and, well, I guess that
Sam bit his lip, shutting his eyes as he collected his thoughts. He's afraid that I'll leave him. Maybe. I waited patiently, wanting to know exactly what he felt. He then looked up at me with a sad, almost heartbroken look in his eyes.
I guess I just miss being a demon.
Oh. But Sam, you are a demon.
That's not what I meant. I mean, yeah, I'm a demon, but am I really at this point? I work for a human police force. I live in the human world. I barely ever use my power, so it's like I'm not even a demon anymore.
This out of weirdness. This out of well, this doesn't have anything to do with what's going on. But look, he has a chain on his arm. Eh? I mean wrist, but still, I don't think it was there last time. Sam looked down at his lap and closed his eyes, slumping his shoulders in an almost pathetic guilt.
So, I wanted to eventually ask you when the time was right to marry you demon style. Basically, I'd bind my soul to yours, and yours to mine. That way, I'll always know when you're okay, and you'd be able to tell if I was too.
But what about preparing the spell? Surely you have to arrange it somehow with special components and whatever else. I can only imagine what soul binding requires.
That I hadn't gotten around to yet. I didn't want to do anything until I knew I could do it, but lately, I've found out that it's impossible.
Hmm? I couldn't help but feel my lips droop in a frown. Sam seemed really bummed about it not being able to pull off the ritual. It was a big deal, or so Sam emotionally suggested. Sam ruffled his own hair with his fingers, slightly growling under his breath. Despite not looking at me, I could tell that he was angry with the situation.
The one chance I have to feel like how I really am, and I can't even do it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I felt terrible for bringing it up. Sam, however, shook his head and looked to me.
Look, don't worry about it and forget you ever heard anything, okay? We'll get married like normal, and we'll spend the rest of our lives together. We don't need a spell for that.
I knew Sam was just trying to avoid talking about it further, so I nodded and agreed. Okay, Sam. Sam nodded before going back to work as I did. We had so much to do in a small amount of time. We worked the entire afternoon trying to arrange as much as we could before the passing time hit us like a wave. Dinner was extremely easy, but our focus was solely on the work at hand. The more work we could accomplish, the less stress we had to worry about later. Looking at Sam, I could tell he was exhausted. He had his head in his hands, trying to stay awake as he read over his notes and paperwork, I'm sure for the 5th or 6th time. I was fairly certain he was tired of reading. He always worked so hard and never failed to try and make everything we did the best moment of our lives. He deserved so much, and yet he fell in love with me, a simple human. I had no way to repay him except for loving him back and giving him everything I could. Though, there was one thing. My mind traveled to a small bachelorette gift Suzu and Naomi had sent me when they first heard the news. It was lingerie to be used during our honeymoons, and it was simply sitting folded up neatly in a box under the bed. Really? I looked at Sam again, my libido giving me the idea of possibly surprising him and making it his night. Another part of my brain told me not to bother with it. That gift was for our honeymoon, so it should be preserved as such. But it was a gift, and it was given to me, so I could essentially do what I want with it. My libido fought with my logic over the subject, as I slightly fawned at the idea of making hot love with Sam, or saving the rough night for the honeymoon. Was I going to do it, though? Why not? The more I looked at Sam, the more my inner desire began to burn and light my cord on fire. Maybe it was because of his incubus, or maybe it was because I loved him that much. Didn't matter. I had to get to the room first and change before Sam came in. If it was going to work, that needed to be a surprise. I let out a small yawn and stood up, breaking Sam out of his concentration. Hey, I'm going to get ready for bed. Mind cleaning everything up for me?
Sure.
I knew that his exhaustion would hold him back from using his power for a speed boost, so I had little while to change and surprise him. I smiled and walked over and kissed his cheek before walking out of the dining room. As I reached the lobby, I began to hustle up the stairs into the bedroom. I needed all the time I could get. I quickly stripped out of my clothes and opened the box Suzu and Naomi had sent me, seeing an emerald green and black bra with matching panties. It looked incredibly sexy, and I couldn't wait to see Sam's face when he saw me in it. As I thought of Sam, I couldn't help but feel a shiver run up my spine. His touches and his love were intoxicating. This was the least I could do for him. His scent was intoxicating, and his eyes were endless traps for me to get lost in. His arms were my castle, and his heart was my timekeeper. When I heard the line, "His arms are my castle," I started thinking of Cascada. He almost made my world perfect, and I could no longer imagine my life without him. I heard Sam's heavy, tired steps as they hit the stairs, forcing me to rush while I hid the box, hid my clothes, and grabbed my black robe to cover myself. As he opened the door, I turned to face the window.
Hey, you ready for?
Sam stopped. I was certain that me facing away from him in my black robe surprised him into silence, so I looked over my shoulder at him. I needed to seduce him, like he seduced me, so I needed to release my inner temptress. I slowly turned around, carefully formulating what I wanted to do for him, and looked deep into his eyes despite the distance between us. Sit down. Mesmerized, Sam slowly made his way towards the bed, not breaking the gaze between us, and sat down in silence. Was he going to be obedient? I moved to the fireplace, knowing that it only took a couple of clicks to turn on music through my TV. As if Lady Luck was on my side, the tune that began to play from it was a slow, sensual score. I looked at Sam as I slowly let the robe slide down and off my body, revealing what was underneath it. Sam's eyes instantly dilated at the sight, and his chest heaved in both surprise and desire. I channeled every ounce of sexuality I had in my body as I slid the robe away from me with my foot and ran my hands down my sides. Sam, you've done so much for me.
Yeah?
I want to show you how much I care for you, and I want to thank you. Sam stirred as I began to sway my hips at the beat of the song floating through the air. Sam's eyes traveled up and down my body as I ran my hands through my hair before bringing them down to my shoulders and over my breasts. How was I able to do this with a straight face? I don't know. I would never be able to figure it out, but I went with it, walking to Sam, leaning forward a bit to hover my lips over his. As Sam leaned in to kiss me, I pulled back a bit and held a finger over his lips. You can't touch me until I say so, that includes kissing me. I couldn't tell that every nerve in Sam's body and mind was firing just from looking into his lust-filled eyes. He was drowned in need, wanting to ravish me simply from what I had already done. How much further could I push him? I wanted to find out. Sam obeyed, keeping his hands by his sides on the bed and biting his lower lip to maintain some control of himself. It was actually rather refreshing to see him like this. I wouldn't make him wait long, however. I leaned back towards him, hovering my lips over his as he stared deep into my eyes. He wanted to kiss me, however he remained still for me. Perfect. My hands began to reach for him, and slowly began to remove the Letterman jacket and undershirt from his body. His glistening skin and the minimal light in the room had me licking my lips at the sight. He really was handsome. Even more than that, he was all mine. Only I was allowed to do this to him, only to touch him, to kiss him, and make love to him. I was forever happy and grateful, and wanted to show him just how much he meant to me. I stepped back, my eyes tracing his form before running my hands over my body, over the lingerie that I'm pretty sure he wanted to tear off me, and slowly dancing to the music. The sway of my hips and the way my fingers traced over my skin made him release some form of growl or desire-filled sigh. This show was for him, and soon he'd be able to ravish all he wanted as soon as I brought him to the brink of his control. As much as I wanted to be dominant here, it was amazingly sexy to see him lose control and let me feel his rough and strong passion. I would drive him to that point with each hip sway and each trail my fingers created over my body. Knowing that I needed to prod him a bit further, I slowly walked over to him, standing directly in front of him. However, as I turned my back to him, I could feel his growl against my back, making me suppress a shiver. The beast was slowly coming out. I swayed my hips even more, bending slightly to have my rear dance over his lap without actually sitting down on it. I'd never really imagined I would give someone, let alone him, a lap dance. His heavy breath against my back let me know that it was worth to help build his desire. I smirked for rolling my hips in a circle, purposely making my ass ever so slightly brush over his groin. I was rewarded with a growl which made my smirk widen. Almost there. I continued to roll my hips in circles, straddling his lap while my back hovered barely an inch from Sam's chest. I slowly felt myself becoming hot at the dance, needing him to touch me and ravish me already. However, the goal was to make him break, not for me to command him to. I quickly turned around, straddling his hips and pressing my knee down onto the mattress as I met Sam's gaze. His eyes were shifting back and forth between gold and green, just a little more. I placed my hands on Sam's shoulders before rolling my hips forward, letting it rub and grind against the heated bulge in his pants. I ran his nails over the back of his neck and pressed my chest to his, rubbing my lips over his mouth once again. Sam, do you want me? Sam couldn't even speak a word. He was very quietly growling through his teeth, irritated that he couldn't touch me upon my demand. However, his eyes spoke volumes of his lust for me. The final breaking point. I finally pushed forward and took his lips in mine, kissing him deeply. My core was on fire and I needed him to break. I bit his lower lip, knowing that while it would show my power over him, it would very quickly be overturned. As Sam's hands gripped my ass, I gasped in surprise, melting at the sensation of him grabbing a cheek in each hand. I let out a hot moan against his lips as Sam pushed back against my mouth with his own needy lips. He pulled my waist tightly against his, grinding his hips into mine and letting me know how very hot he was as he came to learn just how hot I was for him. I let out another moan rumble against his lips before I felt Sam pull my legs to wrap them around his waist. My arms circled Sam's neck as he stood up, lifting me up with him, and as I continued to make love to his mouth with mine, he kept his hands over my rear, massaging each cheek roughly as he turned around and climbed over onto the bed on his knees. Sam fell forward, pressing me down on the bed as he ground his hips between my legs against my already burning desire. As I moved my arms, he quickly moved his hands from my ass and grabbing my wrists, pinning them to the bed beside my head. Sam pulled away and looked down at me, his eyes glowed with need in preparation for an enthrallment spell. His enthrallment over me was part of our sex, no matter how gentle or rough he was. It made each touch, each movement, and each dance 10 times more explosive and pleasurable. I felt warmth take over my body as Sam finally began to enthrall me, making me moan as how the heat of made my core and desire scream to be relieved.
Don't move.
Okay. I nodded, yielding in desire, but agreed to his demands. The tables had turned, and I was ready to receive him however he wanted to have me. Sam, with almost insane speed, removed his pants and underwear, leaving him bare over me.
I'm not.
Oh my god! Ah! I hope you wouldn't. I'm scared. Sam smirked before gripping my wrists, making me gasp against the sensation.
Maybe I really am a brute.
Out of all of them, he had to be the one to be talking. This makes it even more embarrassing. I prayed at the sight of his gaze. He seemed to be full of carnal passion without restraints or desires or to hold back. It was so alluring and delicious to see the lust in his eyes. Sam finally leaned down and claimed my lips, making hot love with them with his own as I moaned. His grip on my wrist tightened as he pressed his cheeks against mine. I could feel his heart pounding against my chest in rhythm with my own quickened pulse. His hands slowly released my wrist, knowing that I would keep them there. Before twirling down my arms and tracing every curve of my body, he purred in delight with the shivers that ran through me at his touch. It wasn't long before he had removed almost every part of my lingerie and pressed his nude body to mine. The warmth of our bodies made the air that much more heated, but also much more sexual. Love burned our eyes as we gazed at each other, and I was left moaning and reeling at Sam, touching and caressing every part of my body. I became his to ravish, and he was mine to love and feel ecstasy. As we finally made love, time became forgotten. Our sex was red hot and crazed, well, like two beasts craving for each other's touches and sounds. The bed creaked loudly with our lovemaking, and the sound of our only accompanied by the sensual music that played on repeat, the slaps of skin between us and the moans that fell from our lips. We quickly became louder than the music, but we barely noticed, as all we cared about was how we made each other feel as we reached for each other's release. His emerald eyes bored into mine as we became lost in the pleasure between us, which was heated, crazed, wild, rough, and full of love. I could only stare back, needing to see him as I felt him. As he professed his love for me, I felt myself reel and rush faster towards the last string holding me together. As it broke, I gripped Sam and gave every ounce of love I had through a love profession of my own mixed with the hot and loud scream. We both drifted through a white, blissful glow of ecstasy and release, grasping each other and not wanting to let go. His arms enveloped me and held me to his body as I circled my arms around his neck and nuzzled into his shoulder. We were both very exhausted and very much full of love.
I love you. I love you so much, you doofus.
I love you too, Sam. I practically purred as Sam ran his hand over my hair and back, soothing me into a peaceful sleep. The warmth of his skin and the hum of his relief that washed over my body helped me drift to slumber at last. Whew, that's over with. I was not expecting that. I felt myself drift through the darkness of slumber, both at peace and enjoying the warmth around me that it brought. It was tranquil, unable to feel anything but bliss. I love that I often had the chance to experience this kind of sleep, which was good since I was stressed about the upcoming wedding. I needed proper rest. However, as I floated through the dark, I could faintly hear the sounds of fire swelling around me. I looked around through the dark, unable to see anything but blackness. What the? Fire? Rocks? Coal? Rain? Slowly the noise began to grow louder and louder, unrelenting its crescendo. I almost had to cover my ears from the sheer volume.
You think you
Ooh, I got shivers! I literally have goosebumps. As I blinked, the dark around me shifted into a burning room. Flames touched every inch I could see, and in the midst of it all were Sam and his father, the Demon Lord. They were both wounded, but both were standing tall, confident as ever. Sam stood between me and the Demon Lord, protecting me from him. Still, I felt fear seeped into my soul as I looked at the evil Demon Lord, smirking at both me and Sam.
I will kill you, old man! I want to see you try. You don't even have the strength to save your precious human!
What? Oh! Before I could figure out what he meant, I felt an immense pain in my chest as something ripped through my back, stabbed through me. Sam turned towards me, horrified at what he saw, and looked to see the blade sticking out of my sternum. I couldn't even emit a whimper of pain as endless agony surged through my body, wrecking my nerves and distorting my vision. I could barely make out Sam arcing back to scream at the sky, large frame-like wings erupting from his back. His father did that for a reason. He wanted to unleash his inner demon. However, I felt my body give into the pain and my vision turn black. I felt waves of agony crash into my body over and over as I remained on the edge of death. When I was finally able to open my eyes, I could barely make out Sam leaning over me, resting my head on his knees as tears ran down his face.
No. This can't be happening. No.
From the look on his face, I really was dying. How could this be? Why was this happening? His hands quaked in disbelief as he ran one along my cheek and used the other to hold my shoulders. I stared up at him, gasping for air as blood seeped over my skin. I was dying. I felt it. I knew it. Sam wept, but continued to stare down at me, trying to keep me awake. Everything was so good until this moment. And alive with his touch. However, I felt that I wasn't going to last much longer. And when I hope he doesn't do anything rash if I did die. That'd be awful. At once as the pain, I reached an arm up to Sam, touching his cheek. Sam shook his head violently, not wanting me to use my energy to speak. I grimaced at the pain, but Sam continued to cry. My heart whimpered at the sight of his tears falling down his cheeks.
Please, no. I love you. Please stay with me. No.
Sam, I love you. I wanted to wake up, but I didn't have the strength to fight this illusion. I became lost in the pain that was pinning my body down and draining me of my life.
I can't lose you! Please! Please. I love you.
My chest wouldn't allow me to breathe in anymore. All I could do was exhale my last breath and close my eyes.
No!
At a scream, I finally awoke, sitting up in bed and finally being able to fully breathe again. I panted, feeling the need for fresh air to circulate through my lungs and chest. I ran my hand over my chest, feeling no marks and knowing that I was indeed alive and awake. What of Sam? I looked to the side to see him still sound asleep, lost in his dreams, which seemed to be peaceful just from the look on his face. I let out a quiet sigh, closing my eyes and looking up to the ceiling. It was just a dream, nothing more. It was merely a nightmare. I experienced them all the time. The more I thought of it, the more I could sense the fantasy of it. I was okay. We were okay. I ran a hand through my hair before lying back down, knowing that I would find solace in Sam's arms. As if by instinct, Sam wrapped both his strong arms around my form and I cuddled against his chest. We were fine. We were going to be fine. At last, the wedding day arrived. We had prepared all that we could and everything was in order. Sam, wanting to follow human tradition and not see the bride before the wedding, headed to the venue to change into his tux. I, however, was alone. I didn't ask Naomi or Susie to help, and I honestly didn't want them to. I needed to be alone before my wedding, so I got dressed and made myself into the perfect bride on my own in my own mansion. Well, that isn't weird at all. Why would you want to isolate yourself from your own friends? Jeez. But I guess some people just like that. I stared at myself, seeing exactly what I wanted to see in the reflection. I looked exactly how I wanted to look on my wedding day. I smiled, unable to shake the feeling of happiness from my body. I'm getting married. I let out a small sigh of relief, washed over my nervous mind. Everything was going to be fine. As I heard a car honking outside, I felt nervousness creep in once again. I shook my head. I needed to relax. I grabbed the things I needed and rushed out, entering a white limousine. It was set to bring me to the venue, but I stopped the driver before he began to drive off. Can we stop somewhere first? The driver agreed, and I guided him towards the cemetery my grandfather was buried at. It had been 2 years since he passed away. And this is from Seduce 1. The little preview we had from before. My personal visits to his grave had become fewer as time went on, but I had never stopped going. Today, though, was an incredibly happy day. I was so full of emotion I couldn't help but visit his gravestone. After all, I was about to marry a demon. I was about to marry the man of my dreams, and I wanted to stop there before going to the wedding venue to talk to my grandfather. I'm pretty sure I looked odd in the cemetery, wearing a wedding dress. However, I really didn't mind. I needed to come regardless. I stood by the grave, staring down at it with a smile. I'm getting married today, Grandpa. The wind gently danced around me as if my grandfather ushered it to reply. My smile grew brighter and I let out a sigh. I couldn't lie. I wanted my grandfather to be at my wedding, but I couldn't go back in time. Even if I was able to, how could I have stopped him from dying? It's all Diana's fault. I shook my head. I didn't want to think about that, not on the day of my wedding. I hope you're here in spirit, Grandpa. I'm sure you'll... Before I could continue my sentence, the sky suddenly became dark, causing me to look up. Rain began to fall and patter against the stone and grass as a haunting bell began to chime. What boggled my mind was the fact that the rain was avoiding my body. It was like I was in a safe circle, underneath an invisible umbrella so that the rain couldn't soak me or my dress. What the... Was this grandfather's doing? Why was it raining all of a sudden? The rain became heavy, and I didn't dare move from my spot, afraid of what would happen. I looked at his grave, confused and concerned. My eyes locked onto engraved stone. This wasn't a natural storm. Magic was at work here. My heart gave a quick squeeze in reply to my conclusion, but the word magic reverberated in my mind. Magic. I looked down and lifted my hands to scan over my gloved palms. My fingers began to tingle, almost as if the single word had unlocked something. Magic. I gently pinched the edge of the glove on my hand with 2 fingers and slid it off, revealing my bare skin. Nothing had changed, but I could feel that something was different. I could faintly feel energy zipping through the nerves under my body, under my skin, dancing in excitement at the word magic. I wonder... I knew Diana had taken away my energy and magic before she left, but... What if I still had some left? I raised my hand to the sky and focused on the back of my hand. I didn't know what I was doing, but I had to see something. My mind quickly formed a word in my mind. I didn't know where it came from, but I let it fly from my lips as a soft whisper. The signal. As soon as the sound of the word rose into the air, the rain around me suddenly froze as if time had stopped. The wind was still slightly blowing, but the rain had stopped. I slowly lowered my hand and looked around. Did I really do this? Before I could move again, the raindrops and the stormy clouds above began to fade away, returning to the sunny weather it had been before. I looked around and noticed that the grass and the gravestones were all dry, as if the rain hadn't even fallen in the first place. That was...
I knew it! I knew it! That girl has demon magic.
What the...
And quit talking and let's take her! The Demon Lord will be so pleased.
Who? Before I could turn to search for the voices, I felt hands grab onto my feet and looked down and lifted my dress. 2 pairs of evil-looking hands had taken hold of my ankles, reaching through a dark red and purple pentagram. I shrieked, trying to pull my legs away, but couldn't stop them as they swiftly pulled me into the ground. I was pulled deeper into the darkness. I was no longer in my room. I wasn't in my room. I was at the cemetery. I was being dragged through a dark void, one that I couldn't escape. I reached out and clawed at the dark, trying to find something to grab onto. I tried to pull my legs away from the hands that were holding them, but couldn't pull free. What was going on? Why was this happening? Someone help me! As if someone had heard my screams, suddenly I felt the hands let go and disappear, leaving me to float in the darkness they left me in. I shut my eyes. Please let this be a dream. Please let this be a dream. I finally felt a surface under my feet and I collapsed onto it, my body curling in on itself from the experience I had. I didn't dare turn my eyes away from my lap, not ready to get up just yet. The voice I heard, however, made my heart stop.
You! What are you doing here?
I looked up, finally having the courage to take in my surroundings. My heart stopped beating for a moment, seizing in my chest. I looked up to see 5 figures, strangers, monsters, beings that I didn't recognize. They all looked down at me in surprise as if I had dropped in at a very bad time. One man looked like an orc from a fantasy game without his tusks. He had broken horns and he had a very frightening aura around him as he stared at me. The other male was lanky in comparison, more human-like, but I could almost feel power emanating from him regardless. One of the women who was staring at me had rabbit ears. Rabbit ears! They twitched on top of her head as she looked at me and gripped her staff. She seemed harmless, yet she had animal ears. The one creature that I couldn't discern the sex of seemed more excited to see me than surprised. What freaked me out about them was that they had wings sticking out of their backs, and they were floating. The last woman, however, set off alarms in my head as I looked at her surprised face. Her hair, her eyes. Diana? As she stared, the woman turned her body towards me in recognition of the name I had called her. It was her.
What are you doing here?
Diana walked towards me and stared down at me. It was odd, but she didn't look like a human, yet I wasn't afraid of her demon form as it towered over me. It was more than I was more in shock as to what was going on. Before Diana could speak further, most likely to repeat herself, a figure quickly stepped up and bowed to her, kneeling beside me.
My lady, please forgive me. I felt something moving between our worlds and assumed the Demon Lord was to blame, so I intercepted his summoning of this human.
You! So I wasn't the only one who felt the change in the air.
Diana stared at the man kneeling beside me as I kept my eyes at her. As she turned her gaze back to me, I gulped silently. What was she going to do with me? This all felt wrong. I was about to be married. I was about to live my happily ever after with the man I loved. Now I was in a place I didn't know with Diana and a bunch of other creatures I didn't recognize. My instinct was to... Since we're doing Sam's route, we're gonna be aggressive. Attack. I couldn't help it. Here was the woman who had haunted me and forcibly taken my energy before departing from my life. She was defenseless. I jumped up, lifting the hem of my dress with one hand to move swiftly before grabbing Diana's throat and tackling her up against the table beside her.
Isaiah! Why, you little...
Stay back!
Despite me crushing Diana's neck, she held her hands out, stopping the beings around us from interfering. I didn't care. I only wanted to hurt her. I wasn't supposed to be here. She had to be the reason I was pulled into this place against my will. She had done damage to me before. She could do it again. What does she want with me? Why am I here, Diana? Why did you bring me here? Why did you take me away from my wedding?
I didn't bring you here!
Liar! You're the only one who could have done this to me. Why can't you just leave me alone? Are you so angry that you'd pick me over you that you'd kidnap me on my wedding?
Just listen!
Hey. All of a sudden, my mind went blank and my grip around Diana's throat relaxed, releasing her. I felt myself step back away from Diana as she stood up and curled over her body, coughing and gasping for air. I couldn't move my body. What was happening? I watched, unable to do anything as Diana snapped her fingers towards the beings in the room, the one who had called her Izayur. Obediently, he rushed over to her and gently wrapped an arm around her shoulders, helping her up to her feet and standing her up straight. Diana looked up at him and brought him closer to her with her hand without him fighting back. As he got closer, she locked lips with him and both of them closed their eyes. Was she taking his energy? I couldn't exactly move, so all I could do was stare. After a short moment, Diana pulled away from the man. The person who was holding her backed away as well, bowing his head to her. Diana then looked to me with an almost stone-cold glare as she rubbed her throat.
I didn't bring you here. The Demon Lord, the boy's father, tried bringing you to his castle, and my servant interrupted the summoning, bringing you to me instead. You should be thankful that you're not dead right now.
I didn't want to believe her. How would she care about me? She could kill me now and take the boys for herself, just like she wanted before. Diana stared at me, sighing before snapping her fingers and releasing me from her spell. I staggered on my legs, now feeling control over my body. But before I could attack her again, Diana held her arms out on her sides.
You may attack me again if you wish. However, I promise that hurting or killing me will not take you back to where you came from.
I eyed Diana, not knowing anymore if she was lying to manipulate me or actually telling the truth. There's no way to know with her. If she really didn't bring me here, then she was still responsible for keeping me. Send me back.
Are you calm?
Why are you even bothering with her, Succubus? She's a human.
Shh! Let them figure it out. Indeed. The faster this gets settled, the faster we can get back to our council.
I kept my eyes on Diana, not wanting to trust her, but having to anyway. This was beyond wrong, but I had to go along with her in order to get back. I nodded to Diana, and she sighed softly in relief. I looked around at the other beings in the room. They all kept their gazes to me, unsure what I would do or say. Diana helped her lead the conversation.
First, can you tell me what happened to you?
I took a breath, recounting everything that had happened. I was about to go to the church and to be married, and then I was attacked by this darkness. A couple of hands grabbed my legs and pulled me into it, and then I fell here.
A shadow summoning?
Diana turned to one of the beings, a lanky male, and glared.
One of yours couldn't have.
On my honor, it wasn't any of mine. We have nothing to gain from kidnapping a human. Nor do we know who this woman is, anyhow.
My lady, if I may, I clearly remember hearing imp demons in the void along with her. It must have been the Demon Lord's henchmen.
Those damnable creatures. That explains it.
Diana crossed her arms and looked to me again.
Well, dear, it seems that you were to be either a new harem girl for the Demon Lord to ravish, or bait for the boys to return to their father's side. Either way, I doubt you would have lived long had the Demon Lord gotten his hands on you.
A violent shiver ran up my spine. Was it true? I would have died?
Wait a minute. This girl knows about the Demon Lord's heirs?
Yes. Hilariously enough, she was set to marry one of them, as you can see from her garb.
As Diana motioned towards my dress, I realized how vulnerable I was and felt extremely self-conscious. I wrapped my arms around myself as Diana let out a sigh.
Well, since you do not belong here, the obvious thing to do is to send you home.
I couldn't help but stare wide-eyed at Diana. She was really going to send me home? Really? I couldn't believe my ears. You will really send me back?
Of course. It should be easy to do once everything is in order. It'll be like you never left the human world.
Wait, like I never left the human world? What do you mean by left the human world? Diana stared before chuckling softly and gesturing to the room and beings within it.
Dear, do you not realize where you are? You are in the demon world.
My mind went blank. It couldn't be. I couldn't be in the demon world. No way. No way in hell. I felt myself back up against the wall behind me, suddenly afraid. I was in another world? How? That was impossible. Diana stepped towards me, both of her hands softly trying to show me she meant no harm as she positioned them in front of her body.
Do not panic. We will send you back now, so there's nothing to worry about.
How will you power the spell? Bringing someone here is no easy task, but sending someone back consumes much more energy.
I'll use what energy I have now and rest. We can organize the siege another time when I fully recover. It's not like the Demon Lord can escape the corner we've trapped him in, so we do have some time to spare.
You'd waste time and energy on this human. We must strike now while the Demon Lord is weakened.
But the human doesn't belong here. She needs to go home.
Shall I prepare the return spell?
Do. I grant you permission to use my energy to power the spell.
With a nod, the lanky male held out his hand towards the wall. I looked over in the direction it was aimed at. Diana's shadow? I watched as Diana's shadow simply stood against the wall, mirroring the movement of the real succubus in the room. Before my eyes, the shadow began to morph and expand on the wall on its own. I looked back to Diana, see her wrapping her arms around herself and curling her shoulders over, as if she was in pain. Her nails embedded themselves into her forearms, and I could barely make out a painful hiss escaping her clenched teeth. Was the spell hurting her that badly? I returned back in the wall to see Diana's shadow shaken and vibrating, as if it was resisting the change the man was forcing on it.
You will obey my command. Open the gates to the void, and allow passage to the world we seek.
Transitum perenam preto tranibes. Ubi aperiunt. Ianoium. Decidium.
Upon Diana's final word, her shadow burst and expanded into an oval-shaped doorway. I stared wide at the passage before a hand gently placed itself on my shoulder, forcing me to look over. The one with the spear gently pressed my shoulder forward and looked down at me with an almost stern face.
You must leave now. The faster you leave, the quicker we can close the void.
Go! Go! Go get married!
I quickly nodded and looked at the bottom of my dress, stepping forward to make a run for the passageway. However, before I could bolt towards my feet, a snarl echoed through the room.
How dare you interfere with my summoning!
At that very moment, Diana began to scream, arcing her spine and throwing her head back. And around her body were red-tinted bolts of lightning, flashing and shocking her form.
No! Human! Use the passage! Now!
He didn't have to tell me twice. I bolted towards the portal, diving forward as I neared it, but I was forced back by a burst of energy and a flash of red light. I fell to the floor, almost slamming my head onto the stone.
A human will never, ever leave this world alive! You spineless worm!
Close the portal! The Demon Lord might get through!
But the human...
Close it!
As commanded, the man pulled his hand back, visually forcing his arm back behind his body. And Diana's shadow quickly began to morph back into a simple shadow. The electricity around Diana faded away, and she began to tip forward. The man with the spear dropped his weapon and caught Diana in his arms, cradling her to his body as she panted and gasped for air.
I don't sense the Demon Lord anywhere.
The worm has to scurry through the shadows to try and fight back. He'll be dead soon enough.
How is she, guard?
Diana seemed to be, or look uninjured, but her body was twitching from the aftermath of the magical attack. Her visible eye was shut tight as she dug her fingers into the guard's jacket to cling to him. As her eye opened, I saw not a blood ruby red color, but I saw a cold and unfriendly golden color painted over her iris. Her mouth opened as she panted for air, and I could see hunger in her facial expression, but she continued to stare at the wall, not wanting to make eye contact with anyone.
There are no physical wounds, but she's been weakened. I must give her my energy so she can recover.
The man swiftly moved and hooked an arm underneath Diana's knees, lifting her up bridal style as she clung to his jacket, shivering. The spear that had fallen to the floor faded into the black and purple mist as he quickly left the room with her in his arms. My mind, however, began to panic. I couldn't go home? How was I being forced to stay? Damn the Demon Lord, this wasn't right!
There's an imp in the castle. That is the only way the Demon Lord could have been able to interfere.
You! Guards by the door! Hunt it down!
A pair of guards that were apparently by the door saluted when commanding them and ran off. I felt out of place, alone, terrified as to what was going to happen. The Demon Lord wanted me here, and his words pounded at my mind. How was I going to get home? Would I ever be able to go home?
Hey.
I looked up to see the winged person hovering near me before they moved and sat on their knees on the stone ground beside me.
We'll get you home, okay? Diana just needs a little rest, okay?
She needs more than rest. She needs to use a different spell to send her back. The Demon Lord will expect her to use the shadow spell again.
How about the normal way? I'm sure we can connect to a witch, or even the warlock she used before, to reopen a portal to the human world.
The warlock she used to get to the human world died, remember? And he was the most powerful warlock in the human world, practically a god himself. What other human could be used to open a portal without another human dying?
It was merely a suggestion. The faster we get this human home, the faster we can move on and finish off the Demon Lord.
Well, what are we going to do with a human now?
We can give her a room to rest in. Humans need sleep after all. Maybe by the time she wakes up, we'll think of a solution.
Come.
The woman with the rabbit ears looked down at me and lowered her hand to me, inviting me to take it. She had a kind but concerned expression on her face, so I trusted her. I slowly took her hand and began to stand up as the fairy figure brushed off the small patches of dust that had accumulated on my dress. I couldn't do anything. I was forced to listen to the beings around me because there was nothing else I could do. Without them, I couldn't get home. My heart ached, but I had to accept my predicament.
Here, I'll bring you to the open ambassador's room. You are free to rest there for now.
Okay. I was led out of the room and into the hall. I kept my eyes down, trying to take in more of the situation I was in. I was trapped in the demon world, and Diana was out of commission. The Demon Lord had plans for me, but what exactly was he aiming for? I could have been bait. I could have been revenge. I didn't know, nor could I figure it out now. At least I was safe. At least I hoped I was safe. The woman led me to a room that practically screamed medieval fantasy. Everything was clean, but it still had that old age feel, as if no one had ever stepped foot in the room until that moment.
Rest here for now. When Diana is well again, we can discuss what to do.
Thank you. I nodded to the woman before she gently curtsied and left, closing the door behind her. I took a moment to observe my surroundings, interested in understanding the aesthetic. This was a fantasy turned into reality. It was like I had gone back in time. Why, though? Was the demon world really that behind in the times, or did magic supersede technology, and this was the result? Despite the situation I was in, which was beyond heartbreaking and terrible, my curiosity began to fester in my mind, as if I was given a golden opportunity to learn something new. However, my thoughts began to drift, and I felt myself becoming weak and dizzy, no doubt from the shock and trauma I had gone through. I stumbled towards the bed, needing to sit down and let everything settle in without passing out. As my rear hit the mattress, however, I let out a small, pleasured sigh. Holy crap, this is a comfy mattress! I felt myself fall back, and my entire body simply melted into the softness beneath my body. It was like I was sleeping on a cloud. Was that possible? Demon magic may have had something to do with it, but I was certain that I was drifting into an almost blissful sleep just by lying on the blankets and mattress. Not caring that I was still in my dress, I closed my eyes and drifted to sleep. I needed the rest, since Diana wouldn't be available for a while anyway. Darkness surrounded my mind, my dreams remaining silent and hushed in the cool and calm black. No nightmares appeared and no sounds were made. I was simply resting, and that was all my body needed. I had let my thoughts wander into my subconscious, thinking about what was going to happen now. What will the boys do when they realize I'm gone? What will he do? I imagined him finding a way through the demon world and pulling me back to where I belonged, wrapping me in his arms and swearing to never let me go. I would be relieved, and we would be just happy. We would be married just as we planned. Yeah. How unrealistic was that? I had to be realistic now. I was stuck, and the only one who seemed to be able to send me back was Diana and her companions, whoever they were. I had to trust them, whether I liked it or not. Eventually, I did rise from sleep, somehow fully refreshed and calm. How could that have been?
Did you have a good rest?
Pause here. And we are back. I turned my head to see Diana at the door, arms crossed and leaning against the door's archway. She had a look of concern and pure curiosity on her face as she waited my answer. Yep.
Good. A good rest is always important, especially to humans.
Wait, I forgot. This is... making sure this is... Yes, there we go. And settings. Okay, everything's good. Well, I don't even know what just happened. What about demons?
We rest as well, but it's not sleep like you humans do. We simply rest with our eyes open.
Why?
It's easier to avoid getting killed when your eyes are open.
I gulped. Were demons really that paranoid? Were they paranoid for a reason? Diana shook her head and stepped into the room, closing the door behind her.
So we need to find another way to get you back to the human world. It won't be easy, but I believe it can be done by tonight, at the latest.
Tonight? Really? Diana nodded and crossed her arms again, leaning on one hip.
It will take time to get our shadow agents to gather the necessary supplies, but they are not hard to obtain, being that we're in a position of power. You must be lucky.
What do you mean? Diana sighed before casting a short spell under her breath. In front of me appeared a floating map, almost like a hologram. It showed an entire world with mountains, plains, and forests, and it was all surrounded by sea and water. Diana pointed at a marker that had a purple banner at its tip. It was marked in the center of some mountain and forest area. It was also the very center of the map.
That is where we are currently, the center of the abyssal plains.
Diana then ran her finger in a circle around me. So they're here. And over here, over here, places. Showing a perimeter around it.
Everything we need for the spell is within this area. It will just take time to gather the materials and prepare it.
I nodded in understanding the situation. I was going to hopefully be able to go home tonight, which is better than not going home at all. So what should I do until then?
My suggestion? Stay in this room. I can mark this room as off limits so that no demon may enter that would confuse you for an intruder and kill you.
I gulped. I did not want to die. As Diana made the magical map disappear, she shrugged.
However, I cannot stop you from whatever you wish to do. Just don't leave the castle.
I nodded as she turned to leave. As she stepped out, Diana looked back to me with a reassuring look.
We'll get you back to the human world. I promise you that.
Finally, she left me alone in the room. I let out a small sigh and looked up at the ceiling. I had to wait until tonight to actually do anything. How was I going to do? Part of me agreed with Diana's suggestion, wanting to stay in the room and be safe in case the guards didn't know who I was and would kill me on sight. My curiosity, however, wouldn't leave me alone and wanted me to explore the castle. I was handed an opportunity to explore a castle in the demon world, and part of me did not want it to go to waste. I was torn on what to do. Explore! There was no way I was letting this chance pass me by. I stood and walked towards the door, opening it a crack and looking around. There was no one in the hall, but there were 2 directions to go. Which way? Right. I went with right. I closed the door behind me as I exited my room and began to make my way down the right corridor. Everything was definitely medieval style, and I felt a bit small in the hall. It was like in a fairy tale, walking around in a dress. It almost felt dreamlike. The passage seemed long and decorated with wall candles, paintings, and random curtains and flowers. It was mystical to see, and I smiled. As I approached another fork in the hall, however, I sighed. Really? How does anyone find their way? I looked back, knowing I hadn't walked far from my room. I could turn back. Yet... Right. I was heading right anyway. Might as well do it again. I turned right and headed down the hall, greeted by more fantastical decor. My journey down the hall led me to a set of stairs which led to a door to the outside. I remembered Diana's warning, but I was curious. I slowly approached the door and opened it, peeking outside to see what it held.
Soldiers!
I jumped at the sound of a commander's voice, feeling the chill that ran through me when I first encountered the Demon Lord in the incubi's vision. The Demon Lord wasn't here, was he? I peeked past the door once again to see the large, muscular man whom I had met when I fell into this world, barking orders at a large group of soldiers. They were all attentive and obedient. Towards each command he shouted. Here it is.
You all performed well in holding the Demon Lord off. But if we want to win this war, then you will need to become much stronger. We want to win, yes?
Yes, Commander!
Good! Then pair up and fight like you were fighting the Bastard Lord himself. Keep going until I give you clearance to stop.
On his order, the soldiers turned either left or right and began to spar as if they were seriously battling each other. It was almost scary to watch, swords clanging violently and shields beating against steel.
Human!
I felt fear take over as he called out my race, making me stand up straight as the door swung fully open on its own. I wasn't able to hide anymore.
Front and center!
Well, I'm being controlled. On its own, my body began to walk towards the muscled ogre man, and as soon as I was standing in front of the center with the sparring clashing behind me.
Do you have jurisdiction to leave your room, human?
No. Yes? I felt my answer force itself out, as if I had no control over myself. Why was this happening? I looked at the ogre man and noticed his golden eyes burning into my gaze. Was he using his powers on me? The man crossed his arms and looked at my form.
Why are you here, then?
I was curious, sir. With a raised eyebrow, the man uncrossed his arms and looked over at to a weapon rack. On it were spears, swords, shields, and other weaponry I really did not want to deal with while wearing a wedding dress.
Tell me, are you proficient with a sword?
No. Was he seriously going to make me fight? I somehow regained control of myself and shook my head. No, I mean, I can do taekwondo, but...
Taekwondo? What is that?
I gulped, but remembered that he was a demon. Human fighting was not like demon fighting. Well, it's a form of fighting without weapons.
What, like brawling?
No, it's like precision fighting, I guess. I mean, I can't really show it to you in this dress, but...
Then take off your clothes.
No. My face instantly turned red. What? I stepped away and crossed my arms over my chest, feeling myself become red in anger and embarrassment. No, why would I do that? The man growled and sighed, rubbing his head. Did he seriously think asking me about that was a good idea? Was he No, he's not. He's just trying to be... I don't know. He doesn't know how to... He doesn't understand. The man then crossed his arms again and stared at me plainly.
If clothes hinder you from defending yourself, you shouldn't wear any. You can look as fancy as you want for whatever reason you want, but fancy clothes won't protect you from a blade.
I hope this doesn't come bite me in the butt later. I stared. Was he seriously giving me a lecture about clothes and defending myself? He looked pretty serious, so I continued to listen without interrupting.
There's only one thing in this world that should matter to you. Yourself. If you can't protect yourself, then you need to fix that. Even if that means stripping out of that wedding dress or whatever you're wearing.
But I don't need to defend myself right now. I just wanted to show you.
Then show me or don't suggest the idea. Words also have power here. Unlike the human world, we take what we say very seriously.
I suddenly felt small looking at the man. Was he trying to teach me a lesson? I understood what he meant, but was he trying to teach me or berate my reaction? He was making no sense, yet I felt like I should have been listening intently and obeying. Was it his commanding aura? The man shook his head and pointed at the door I came from.
Return to where you came from. You'll be sent back to the human world soon enough. Don't distract my soldiers from their training.
I looked behind me to find some of the soldiers looking at me as they fought. Some in hunger, some in confusion, others in disgust. My arms wrapped themselves around my form and I shivered before nodding to the commander and rushing towards the door. Maybe I should have stayed in my room. I marched back to my room, determined not to allow my curiosity to get the better of me anymore. I remained in my room until the night came. I was given food which looked like soup. The woman who gave it to me apologized, letting me know that food was scarce until the upcoming harvest, which was a couple days away. Being that I was only staying the day, I didn't mind much. I was more concerned over what I was given to eat. It was some sort of stew with mysterious chunks swimming in its broth. It smelled surprisingly good, but who knew how it tasted? Nope. No way in hell. I was not in the mood to try out new things after what I had been through, and this was not something I wanted to try at all. A knock rapped on my door, breaking me out of my train of thoughts. Huh? Come in. The door opened to reveal Diana with a plate holding things I recognized, bread and cheese. I let out a heavy sigh of relief before Diana laughed.
I suggest not trying that. As good as it smells, the taste would not sit well with you.
Instantly, I moved to the nearby table, thankful that I did not have to try it. Diana handed the plate and nodded, reassuring me that what was on it was indeed what it seemed.
It's not much, but it's human food. Eat up.
I will. I began to chow down, feeling the hunger in my stomach dissipate with each bite and swallow. The food I was eating, surprisingly, was delicious. I mean, it's just cheese and bread. It's like, can't be anything else. As I began to crave something to drink, Diana chuckled and formed a small goblet in her hand, filled with clear liquid that I assumed to be water. I took it and drank it down, feeling my thirst quenched before I let out a sigh. I feel so much better.
I can tell. Take a moment to finish eating, then we'll head for the ritual.
I looked up at Diana, suddenly excited. Everything was prepared for her? Was it possible to go home now? As if she read my mind, she smiled and nodded.
We finished the main preparations. We just need to head over and we'll start.
I couldn't continue eating. My mind went into an obsessive frenzy of wanting to go home. I stood up, moving the plate and goblet to the nearby table. Let's go.
Huh? Are you sure?
I nodded, not wanting to waste any more time. I needed to get home, and I was tired of waiting. Diana stared before nodding and heading for the door, opening it for me and exiting after me. As she closed the door behind her, I began to feel my heart flutter in relieved joy. I was heading home. Diana led me down to the quarters to the war room where I had originally arrived, to reveal a table covered in plant artifacts of different kinds. None of it made sense to me, but I had only assumed that it was what was needed for the spell to work. Diana walked to the table and took note of what she saw, nodding.
This should work.
You're in doubt?
Have to be after the last time we tried sending her home.
No, you're on your own this time. But we'll make sure you survive casting it.
This spell should work, however, because we'll be using energy material. It will only require a slice of your energy on top of these items, which your guard can refill immediately after this.
Just make sure you don't die casting it.
Diana smiled at her guard before turning to me.
So, are you ready to return home?
She didn't have to ask. I'm ready. Diana nodded once more before turning back to the table. She lifted her arms over the surface and lowered her head, muttering under her breath.
O tenebris portas, apriat nobis, largiatur exidium, desiderium.
As she spoke, the table began to glow as she did. A dark purple aura began to surround her form as she lifted and arched her head back, staring at the ceiling. A glimpse of her eyes made me gasp. Warm golden orbs covered her blood-red irises, glowing with magic. She was deep within a spell, and I could see it slowly draw energy from her body. The items on the table began to gleam wildly, lightly, orbs floating from them and dancing in the air above the table's surface. They began to weave and back and forth with each other, almost as if this light they were dancing to a silent tune. The other demons stepped back as Diana moved her arms up and followed to the dancing lights. Her fingers pointed into the air, leading the lights to follow where it directed obediently. She drew a large circle in the air, and the lights followed like a perfect trail, spreading out and forming a large void in the air. As they finally stopped moving, they burst into a bright light, causing the demons and I to cover our eyes from it. It engulfed the room, but died down just as fast, revealing a small tear in the air. Diana quickly leaned forward and dug her hands into it before pulling the tear apart, revealing my bedroom! Diana continued to pull the tear open, giving enough space for me to jump through.
Hurry and go through! This is your chance!
I wasn't going to let it go to waste. I gripped the bottom of my dress and rushed forward, using the momentum to jump into the air and forward towards the void. I could almost reach it. I could feel the air conditioning in my room right at my fingertips.
She will never leave this world alive!
The Demon Lord's voice rang through the air just as I saw my fingertips pass through the tear. What stopped the rest of my body was a red light and force, forcing me and Diana back from the opening. I felt my body fly backwards and slam into the wall before I landed in the stone ground. I heard Diana as well land beside me with a painful thud. I looked up and felt my heart break as the tear became wrapped in red lightning, zipping itself close and vanishing into the thin air. No, this could not be.
Damn it! That should have worked. How could it have failed?
They must have missed something. Was there anything we had forgotten?
No, I verified everything myself.
Then why was the Demon Lord able to overpower a gate spell?
I highly doubt you know either, brute.
Stop fighting! We need to make a plan and all of you are just being stupid! Stupid, 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 stupid!
Are you alright, Isaiah?
I'm fine.
I was too lost in my mind to fully understand what was going on around me. I was so close. I felt the other side. I had almost made it home. Why couldn't I go home? Diana's grunts of pain next to me made me shoot my head towards her, and I watched her slowly push herself off the ground and glare at the table.
The Demon Lord must have done something more than simply bring her here.
What could he have done?
The Demon Lord is incapable of doing anything of the sort. His lackey imps must have done something to her.
A spell?
A curse.
I looked to the rabbit woman who, seeing her, stared wide-eyed at me. The other demons stared at me as well, and suddenly I felt like I was on display. Was something wrong with me?
She will not leave the demon world alive. He must have placed some sort of curse on her to prevent her from leaving this plane. In order to leave, she'd have to die.
What? My mind went blank. Did the Demon Lord really curse me? Was I forced to stay in this world until I died? I could never go back?
Are you suggesting a barrier curse?
That would explain the red energy that sealed the tear.
But dark magic like that requires
blood of 1,000 demons. He must have sacrificed part of his army to cast a curse on her that would prevent her from leaving.
The Demon Lord is that desperate for her.
The only way to break that kind of curse is to kill the caster, the Demon Lord himself.
She's trapped here until this war is over.
My body began to shiver violently. The Demon Lord killed 1,000 demons just to trap me here. Why? Why? I slammed my fist into the ground and began to scream. I still can't scream. I want to go home. Why? I could feel the sympathy and anger in the room, but I didn't care. I was beyond livid. I was far past broken. I was seeing red. Ah. As my voice ripped through the air, a bright light erupted through the room once again. Everyone covered their eyes, but Diana quickly scrambled to get on her knees and covered me with her body. She held me tightly as the light invaded the space and slowly began to fade. As the light finally died, everyone moved their hands to see what had happened. In the air was a white tear that was slowly opening, facing towards the table. Something was coming. I could feel it in the air. The guard summoned his spear and pointed it at the tear, glaring at it and gritting his teeth.
Something's coming!
In reply, Diana summoned what looked like a saber and placed it in front of us.
Ready yourselves! It could be the Demon Lord!
The other demons in the room readied themselves and stared at the tear, either holding a weapon or preparing a spell. I felt the air change, becoming heavier as the tear began to grow. The energy around it began to pulsate, making everyone in the room that much more tense. I stared at the tear as well, frightened as to what was coming. Was it the Demon Lord? His minions? My mind began to cycle through fearful ideas of what was about to appear. My heart almost stopped. Fallen from the tear and landing on the table were the 5 Incubi brothers. They were piled on top of one another, having come through one at a time. However, as the last brother landed, the boys fell to one side, toppling off on the table and landing on the floor. The rebels around me stared at the fallen pile of Incubi, confused and surprised. As the tear in the air closed, the ogre man was the first to lower his sword.
What the hell?
Who are they?
Careful! They could be the Demon Lord's men!
No! The rebels looked to me and I stood up, Diana following and still protecting me as I stared at the boys on the ground. They all looked dazed and a bit shell-shocked from having fallen twice in a rapid succession. I almost couldn't believe it. They were right there, right in front of me. My mind couldn't help but remember how I had first met them. They had all been on the floor of my mansion, unconscious and wounded. Now they were in front of me in the demon world. I know them! I stared at the one I was meant to marry, seeing him slowly shake his head and rise from the ground. They came to rescue me. He came to rescue me. My heart became overjoyed and I full of warmth and happiness. I was going to go home. The question was, how? And that concludes Sam's route. Thank you so much for watching, and I apologize for all the little cutoffs here and there, but you know, it's always like that here. Anyways, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!